replacing the U-joint there, making a little noise. You start by taking out the brake caliper. It's two hex head 3/8 inch. Now for those who haven't taken a caliper off before, I suggest sticking a screwdriver flathead in here to pry out the brake, and then get something to set it on so that you're not stretching out the brake line. Alright, so next you gotta take out this cotter pin right here, and then you take off this castle nut. It's a 1 11/16 inch socket. If you guys don't have a beastie Milwaukee like this one, I suggest before even taking the wheel off to break this off with a breaker bar, or get someone to apply the brakes while you use a breaker bar on it. So when you take the castle nut off, there's this washer here that comes off behind it. Make sure you don't lose that. So the 4 bolts on the back of the hub here, I found are 14 millimeter. So once you have the 4 bolts out, you're gonna prop this up here, use the power steering to turn it. So I have to use the power steering to assist on taking it out. The wheel hub assembly should just slide off. And then next, all you're gonna do is slide the axle out. Make sure you mark it to make sure how it goes in. So before removing the U-joint, you're gonna have to remove the inside locking rings, which is this thing right here. I just take a flathead screwdriver and pry it out with a hammer or something. So after removing the inside locking rings, you can get one of these ball joint presses. If you don't have access to one, you can use a vise and then put a socket on the end in between the vise, clamp it down, and the same thing will happen. With this, you just put a socket on the end here, twist it, and then these will pop out. And when that's done, I'll fill you in on what's next. Now once you get the two apart, I recommend sanding in where the U-joint sits, and then the face here. So after I sanded out the inside of here and here, I'd suggest putting some anti-seize in there just so it's easier if you ever have to reinstall U-joints again. To get the U-joint back in here, you take out the end caps, obviously, and ensure all the needle bearings are in there. You don't want to lose those, or else you'll be redoing the job almost instantly. So I got this all back together, and I know grease joints already come pre-greased, but I like to put more grease in it, so I just greased this up. So here's the grease I got for the spline here. I would just coat it over both sides, obviously this side first. And when you're putting this in, I'm not sure if you guys can see in there, probably not, but there is teeth that move at the back, and you got to make sure you line that up. Alright, so for anyone who's having a hard time getting the axle back in, what I found was just spin it, keep spinning it and slowly push in, and it'll eventually just slide in. I know sometimes easier said than done, but that's what I did and it worked for me. And that's the type of gap that you're looking for. So that's him. I'm gonna put anti-seize on here, and then grease this spline here, and then I'll put the hub back on. And now put in the 4 bolts on the back there. Make sure everything's looking good and flush. So for the 4 bolts on the back, the manual says 122 foot-pounds. I'm gonna go 125 just to be safe, and obviously do it in a crisscross pattern just to ensure it seats properly. Okay, so once you have the back bolts torqued on, put the castle nut back on there with the washer. Don't think it really matters which way. The castle nut torque is 175 foot-pounds. You can either do it, snug it up and then do it when the tire's back on the ground, or get someone to apply the brakes. Obviously you got to put the caliper back on. To do that, compress one of the pistons. You can do that with a C-clamp or an actual brake compressor. And these back hex bolts, I believe they're like 20 to 25 foot-pounds. I like to just snug them up real good rather than use a torque wrench. It's up to you on that one. Before you put the wheel back on, rotate the rotor, make sure everything sounds good. No more noise in the U-joint, so job well done.